All right, last but not least, for day one, we got Stan, good old Brazilian Stan versus MerkLC. So, will we have some sweet, sweet Brazilian representation in the PCS trophy next week? We will find out at the conclusion of this game, as this would put Stan or MerkLC, depending on who wins, in a definitive spot for the winners bracket finals game. So, without further ado, Stan versus MerkLC coming right up. It's basically like a Bannerman deck, but it just has more oomph in the late game. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's basically what it is.
We've seen Harrowing Bannerman popping up more and more, although typically Harrowing and Ruination are the only Shadow Isle cards in the deck, and they still play Vanguard Bannerman. I actually really like Purify. I know that we typically see it and we're like, okay, that's an indoor tech, but how many times have we seen games taken over by an Unyielding Spirited Radiant Guardian? Or how many times have we seen games lost because your Cythria or your Tiana Crown Guard ends up getting frostbitten? Like, there's a lot of fringe uses of Purify that make it good. It's just, I think, over like They Who Endure is what puts it over the top of like, okay, there are a lot of cases where this comes up, but now there's a consistent case where I can run this again in the format and feel good about it in at least one matchup overwhelmingly. And then, it's got its fringe uses in other matchups. And it looks like we're going to get the I was going to say a great curve out of Stan, though it's a little bit different than the curve we typically see. Going to be Hapless Aristocrat into War Chef rather than the Fleet Feather Tracker, but MerkLC getting started off with a deep deck, liking his chances as well with the Dreg Dredgers into the Dead Bloom Wanderer into the Thorny Toad, except swap those last two around as I got their names mixed up on their cost.
I was going to say, wait, what's going on? So, it's so weird. I gotta say, like, I'm like, all right, wait a second. So this is like a Bannerman deck, right? And then I look at the hand and I'm like, but there's two Hecarim. What's going on? Like,
I gotta say, I think I love Hecarim right now. After he got that buff to 5 attack, I feel like he's actually improved a lot.
Yeah.
It's just awkward to find decks to play him in, kind of like Vi, where like there aren't a lot of mid-range Shadow Isle decks, and there aren't a lot of mid-range Piltover and Zon decks. So I think that's just the reason that we're not seeing Hecarim and Vi come out. It's not necessarily that people underestimate them, it's just that the decks that they fit into don't necessarily exist in the meta.
Can we just, real quick though, just like his hand, man. Ugh. Like, once turn 6 comes, you'll be feeling all right, but like I think you need to be a little bit more aggressive than waiting for turn 6 against a deep deck, and this might really hurt him.
I mean, No, he actually doesn't have that many things to curve out on turn 3 and 4. It's just Senna's the only 3-drop in the deck, Grizzled Ranger's the only 4-drop in the deck, Swiftwing's the only 5-drop in the deck. So like unless you're seeing these exact cards, his low curve actually really isn't there. He's running a lot more spells than you would typically see, and it's very possible that he gets clogged up on these high-cost cards. There's 3 Hecarim, 3 Cythria, 2 Tiana, 2 Harrowing, a Ruination. I could definitely see this deck stumbling a little bit into the mid-game.
Which is so weird, too, because he has 3 Hapless and 3 Fleet Feather. So he has a lot of early game, but just like, I don't know, it seems so weird.
Actually only has 2 Hapless.
Oh, it's only 2 Hapless. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Still more early game than like the 3 and 4 and 5 drops, like you said, which just seems a little odd as far as like deck building is concerned to me.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I guess my thought process is, are these 6 drops going to, like, once he gets to turn 6 and 7, Merc's going to be pretty close to deep. We also see a turn 7 Nautilus potentially in Merc's hand. So is this big board on the side of Stan with getting like a Cythria followed by a Hecarim followed by a Cythria, like, is that actually just going to be more powerful than whatever the deep deck can come up with on turn 7, 8, and 9?
I want to say no. I feel like Stan's going to have to find a timely Ruination.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because even a Harrowing isn't going to necessarily punch through a Sea Monster board. It will punch through the second time around, but the first time probably not going to get it done as Nautilus in a wave of at minimum 6 6s come down.
Yeah, and we see the Thorny Toad gonna go ahead and go off, gonna get the 2 toss, which honestly, every time I see a Thorny Toad, I'd say 50% of the time it stays on the board until turn 12.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a reason that we see MerkLC coming only with 2 copies of the card, understanding that it's not really as good against aggro as you kind of want it to be, as well as just the lack of aggro in the format. So I guess I would rather say it's not as good against mid-range as you necessarily want it to be. It's pretty easy for them to just leave it on board.
And the Dead Bloom Wanderer hitting the field. Gonna toss 3 more. So it's looking like, I mean, honestly, with how much has been tossed, Merc might be able to hit it by turn 7. I'm not sure, though. I think he's going to be looking for something like a salvage to really drive that, especially drawing all these Shipwreck Hoarders. Oh, man. See, so to answer my own question, which I asked earlier, is Stan going to be able to be, like, that much stronger than MerkLC? Right now, once Merc goes deep, he's already got 2 Shipwreck Hoarders and a Nautilus in hand. That is a huge board. And he's going to have treasures shuffled in, so... Yeah, I don't know. This is looking bad for Stan.
Definitely, the fact that Stan gets to turn on a turn earlier, I think, is going to play out pretty well for him. I don't know how close Merc is to deep. I've been tracking the Maokai, and I'll tell you, we're not even halfway there. I was going to say we're at 11 out of 25, but he hovered it. Why am I even tracking this? Stan's just going to courtesy hover over it for me. I'm wasting my good sticky notes, Stan. Don't look at it. I'll tell you. Just DM me on Twitter. You have to follow me on Twitter. And then I can give you the insider info. I'm tracking this Maokai for you.
Oh man, we need like a button that we can press that like pings the player to like hover over something.
Yeah, or just a button that plugs my Twitter. Either one. I'm not really picky. We should probably plug my Twitter though.
Yeah, the second one probably more important. So we do see the dream of 2 Cythrias on the field. I imagine one of them gonna get taken care of right now, and I imagine we see the Glips come out. Yep. So it feels bad to lose one of the Cythrias, but we are going to see a Hecarim come down, which will likely get the Grasp to come out onto the Cythria. Ooh, okay.
That's a big swing.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I'm liking this.
If this Nautilus is not deep, if it comes out next turn, we could just see Stan pretty much win the game.
Now, and something cool, too, and again, just if you're new, possibly to the game, War Chef's buffing Cythria, just an important interaction. Oh, actually, never mind. I was going to say he heals it up to 4, but he blocked it with the Spiderling, so... But anyways, it would have healed it up to 4, and crucially put it out of the range of Grasp of the Undying, which is a big deal. Wow, another Tiana.
Do we see... like Hecarim Lucian developed this turn into like Tiana next turn for a second attack into Tiana next turn, or do we just take the Tiana here?
Ooh, that's tough. Now that we've seen him go below 5 mana, we know the Cythria is going to live. I would say take the Tiana here. Because your opponent is tapped out of anything relevant. Because even a Vile Feast doesn't do anything. Like 4 mana doesn't do anything for Merc.
And how much does this... I'm trying to figure out how much damage is represented by Stan here, because I think you always War Chef buff the Tiana, because Merc's going to want to trade onto the Cythria, so buffing that doesn't do anything for you. Which, if that's the case, that means that we see 12 damage pushed through by Stan, who then potentially just has lethal on the open attack.
Well, yeah, and no matter how big the units are from MerkLC, if it does make it to like another Tiana turn, there'll be a Hecarim on the field, and Hecarim is just... he'll go wide. So Merc won't have enough blockers to block this Hecarim, and we see the Tiana. I am so hyped to see a Tiana hit the board in a not Tiana Callista deck, because I feel like that was the only other thing she's relevant with, and does exactly what you said.
I forgot she's tough.
Yeah, and she's tough. Jesus.
I
forgot she's tough too. I totally didn't even
It doesn't come up.
Oh my god. She does something else besides rally? What? Wow. Yep, that's 12 sweet damage coming in. Does decide to take the trade. Man, I feel like he just snapped aside of that too. Do you ever decide to block the Tiana?
Then you definitely die to the open attack, right? And now you still die to the open attack, right?
Oh, actually, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even if, for some reason, if Stan didn't Rangers resolve the War Chef, it's still exact lethal.
Yeah, what 3? Actually, yeah, he just lets it through because he knows. Wow. So we saw a victory due to Tiana, and I'll give you a hint: there was no Callista in the deck. So.
And I pasted a sticky note tracking a Maokai. Man, this is...
Yeah. What a game. So, wow. So we're going to go ahead and put this win in here. Nice. So Stan going up 1-0. And we'll see if he can take home another victory. We've seen a lot of 2-0s today as well, I gotta say. So definitely interesting. We'll see if Stan is going to add to that 2-0 game streak here.
There's a pretty good chance. You know, we've seen Frostbite into Deep. I can't count how many times. This has been sort of the premier matchup from patch 1.2 into patch 1.4, back again in patch 1.6. This is sort of the matchup of the ages for the release of Legends of Runeterra. This is probably the matchup that we see the most, excluding Bannerman.
Yeah, well,
and because Ezreal's always banned.
I was gonna say, wait a second, Bannerman and Ezreal.
If you meet the right conditions.
Well, we'll see if Stan can get off to an aggressive start here. It's definitely looking like it. This hand looks very nice. He curves out very well into a Trapper, into a Assessor. The Assessor probably won't be play turn for, but if we do see an early Yeti draw after this Trapper is played, things could be looking on the up and up for Stan.
Frostbite mid-range typically wins this. You know, it's not heavily favored. I'd say it's something along the lines of 60-40, but you know, your opponent never gets to develop a Nautilus before they've actually gone deep, because you have the threat of the Calling Strike, and Reckoning can actually get a lot done to stave off the early game units that MerkLC does play. And it looks like we're going to develop the Trapper here. We're going to see Jaw Hunters play beautifully into this Brittle Steel, and by beautifully, I mean disastrously. It's a beautiful disaster for the Jaw Hunters player in MerkLC, and without Mist's Call, you're not going to be able to bring it back, and this is why you play Mist's Call. Look at that Vile Feast. Could have been a Mist's Call. What do you need Vile Feast for?
And a Vile Feast on on a Sentry, no less. On an Avarosian Sentry. There is the Yeti already drawn as well. So things are looking okay for Stan still. Going to go ahead and be able to take out this Jaw Hunter as well with this Brittle Steel. So still feeling pretty good.
Merc's going to get to develop Maokai next turn, though. And that is usually where we see the Sea Monster deck sort of take over these games, is when they can get a Maokai down and not really feel threatened by anything. Like, Stan's only representing 3 damage this turn. He's just going to float the 3 mana otherwise. Doesn't have anything to play alongside this Yeti. And he might just have to fire off an Assessor on the next turn just to get 1 draw off. Merc's going to get to respond with an Abyssal Eye or a Deadbloom Wander and some mana floated. I think I like Abyssal Eye a little bit more, digging a little bit deeper into your deck. Here we see a setup for the Yeti onto absolutely nothing, as Devourer of the Depths still doesn't kill things with 4 HP. It's a heartbreaking Calling Strike. You should have played Mist Call.
Well, I mean, now it won't matter because he went below 3 mana. But yeah, well, Calling Strike, screw Calling Strike. You have Reckoning.
I think there's a pretty good case to Reckoning here, actually. I think that this is about as good as it gets, right?
Pretty good case. This is a great Reckoning. Now you're going to go into turn, 6 with an Assessor that's online. You can at least draw 1. This is pretty good. This is pretty good. And I think turn
not
6...
over by any means, though.
No, not over by any means. This Devourer right here, staring us down in MerkLC's hand, might come in pretty big, actually, taking out possibly a Yeti, possibly this Hearthguard. And I think that's what Stan's worried about right here, right? I mean, he can take the open attack, get the free 5 damage. If he plays anything, he risks losing it to the Devourer. Oh, he's not deep yet, though. Never mind.
No.
Okay.
One of the things that I learned early on from watching Winding God, and I've stuck to this philosophy since I saw him make a miracle run to Duels of Runeterra with it, never open attack against deep. Unless they're already, like, if they're not deep yet, their development is so weak. Just develop your board and attack them.
Yep, and we do see, both of them are going to go ahead and go swing for the attack here. The Deadbloom is going to heal up a little bit for MerkLC, but 5 more damage coming to the face from the Avarosian Hearthguard, so, yeah.
I wonder, was there ever a consideration to Culling Strike that and attack for 10? You would have put your opponent at 6. I don't think there's a lot they could have done to develop with the remaining 3 mana.
Well, I guess the real question is, what else do you Calling Strike?
I guess a Nautilus that comes down when they're not deep, which we could see Merc fall for here.
I don't know. That seems... like, if you know your opponent plays Calling Strike, I don't think you will. Well, if you have 2 Nautilus in your hand, you do.
Looks like instead we're going to see Salvage. This should put us deep, and I guess we're going to see Devourer come down then.
Is he deep?
I had hoped so, but it doesn't actually look to be the case. This will still devour the Yeti, though.
Uh-oh. We lost the feed, everybody. Just be 2 seconds. Sure, working on getting it back as we speak. Hey, we're back.
Yay.
All right, looks like we're on the side of MerkLC, though. Something must happen with Stan's perspective, so we'll see. Well, I gotta reorient my mind real quick as to what's going on right now. So
Stan has swapped over to a sea monster deck. You cannot change my mind. The decks may have swapped, but the perspectives did not. Stan has decided to commandeer his opponent's deck.
I gotta change the match scores too. That was confusing. All right, there we go. Stan is up 1-0. And big open attack coming in. I imagine the Devourer will be able to block something out. And now things are starting to look a little bad for Stan, right? I mean, this Sea Monster deck is going to be able to stabilize a bit here. Probably get a Nautilus down. Could even Vengeance if he really needed to protect himself this turn. But I don't think he needs to. I think he can just go ahead and get a Nautilus down.
That's why I like the Culling Strike onto the Dead Bloom so much. Your opponent would be at 6 right now. You would have lethal attacks. You would force a Vengeance out of your opponent this turn to survive. And even last turn, if Merc had developed the Nautilus and said, okay, well, you know what? I'm not actually, like, you used a Culling Strike onto my Dead Bloom, I can develop the Nautilus would still be a 0-13 because Merc wouldn't have been able to play the Salvage, wouldn't actually be deep yet, and you'd still have a really good shot at presenting lethal to your opponent, still would have forced out the Vengeance, and with your opponent being at 4 life, all of a sudden the Captain Pharaon is lethal.
Hey, there's a Shipwreck Order. The first. Wait, is that...
Actually, no. Throws that down instead of the Nautilus, deciding that he wants to toss before he gets the Nautilus down, shuffle in any sea monsters that were sort of tossed away by that one.
Wait, Merc never had 2 Shipwrecked in his hand, right? Not this game?
No, I think that was last game.
That was last game. Okay, I was like, wait, hold on a second. Did I imagine that? But okay. So, all right. So Assessor going to go ahead and get 2 off as far as draws are concerned. But yeah, this is going to be tough for Stan to work through now and do enough damage. Oh, that'll help get rid of one of the big units.
I mean, Merc doesn't have any sea monsters to actually pair with the Nautilus at the moment, and he can't get down Jaw Hunters and Nautilus in the same turn, so Stan still might be able to finish this one off with the next deck, but there's a big Ruination out of Merc. Wow. The problem is, do you feel confident in Ruinationing and Stan not developing enough to kill you? I feel like the answer is no. Instead does go for the Maokai, who I have not been tracking in this game because I was so disappointed in how useless it was last game.
Hey, okay, another Culling Strike on the Maokai. So that's 2 Culling Strikes down now, right?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, you know, as much as that was a decent one, you know, frostbiting the Shipwreck Hoarder and getting that Culling Strike off in a pretty big unit, I feel like you also kind of want to try to use that on the Nautilus, that same combo. And we see 2 Nautilus in the hand of MerkLC, which means we could either get 2 to hit the board, or you just have a Riptide on... you know, just chilling in your hand, waiting to do some work.
I think Stan has decided that he is winning the game next turn, and one of the best ways to do that is to Culling Strike the Maokai, because if you leave the Maokai and Merc develops the Jaw Hunters, all of a sudden half your board is being threatened. The Jaw Hunters can challenge into this Trifarian Glory Seeker. The Nautilus Sapling gets to kill my... Nautilus Sapling gets to kill my Glory Seeker. Jaw Hunters gets to kill my Assessor, and now Stan is representing a really big swing on the following turn, actually going to pass without attacking with the Jaw Hunters, deciding maybe I can see what else my opponent develops if they want to overwrite this Omen Hawk, but I don't think Stan has to. I'm pretty sure he's representing lethal, although I think Vengeance will stop that one out by 1 damage, so Fury of the North could get it done, but I don't think Stan main decks it. No, he does not.
Is there anything else? That's what I'm trying to pull
Sorry,
up.
Stan does main deck 1 Fury of the North. I was looking at Gwen's deck list. So yeah, Stan does have 1 Fury in there.
And really nothing else that would be able to give him lethal. So it's either he's got Fury or Bust. And if he... Well, okay, so Ruination actually still can't be played if... Okay.
All right, so we're setting up for an Assessor. It looks like the Vengeance will prevent the lethal. We just want to Assessor post-combat, but if Merc devours this last Trifarian Glory Seeker, this Assessor out of stand's only going to get 1 card.
Oh, so close, man, at 1, Jesus. And it's, okay, so I've had this problem with Ruination for so long. I feel like it can be such an awkward card. Like, it feels and seems like it should be so good. And there's so many times that we have casted competitive games where it just chills. It chills for so long.
So I've been really looking into the concept of perceived value lately, where it's like, okay, Ruination potentially represents a +5. What is the middle ground I'm willing to settle for? And there are a lot of cards that follow a similar vein, things like Reckoning, Trifarian Assessor, all these cards where it's like, okay, well, I could go for like 4 draws on my Assessor. How much of a middle ground am I willing to take? And too often, we're not seeing players correctly identify the middle ground, and they're just going for really greedy plays. I'm not saying that's exactly what's happening here. I think that if Merc plays a Ruination at any point, if he doesn't have Vengeance on backup, he's pretty likely to die to stand redeveloping.
Well, and that's, I think, the biggest problem is that the way that this game is designed, it's really hard to get your opponent to expend their mana while you still have the mana to play Ruination, right? Which means, like you said, they will be able to redevelop. So, especially when it's competitive play and they know you're playing a Ruination, you're almost never going to get that chance. So your opponent is always going to give themselves a chance to redevelop. And we can see here, it's probably going to swing back over to Stan again, and he's going to be able to open attack and basically completely negate any effect that Ruination would ever have. And actually, with Vile Feast, I mean, so there's a Vile Feast in hand, but putting him at 2 doesn't actually do anything because everything on board is at least 2 damage. So, especially with the Sejuani now, I think that's just game depending on what Merc draws, because Riptide plus Vile Feast will not save him here. If I can do math right.
I'm trying to think of what does save him. I think the answer is nothing. Because even if you get double Riptide, which is the cheapest way to do this, your opponent still gets through 1 attack, and any attack is lethal.
Well, double Riptide plus no,
Vile
actually that wouldn't even matter. Yeah.
I don't think there's anything Merc could have drawn here. If you can somehow play this Ruination at fast speed, but oh boy, I do not look forward to them printing a fast Ruination.
Can you not, please?
I mean, it's gonna happen eventually, right?
No.
Like 5 years from now. We're gonna get, like,
power creep. No. Power creep is not a thing in this game. Okay,
That's
you
why...
shut your dirty mouth. Okay.
Well, yeah, there's no power creep because it's a creep. It's something that slowly happens. The game's been out for 4 months. There hasn't been any time to creep.
Exactly.
Give it 5 years.
So ignore it and act like it's not going to happen, Boulevard.
Give it 5 years, and you can catch me chilling with my 7 mana fast speed Psychic Scream.
I see what you did there. Freaking Hearthstone. Jesus. Oh, boy.
The last game that I designed, they were like, hey, we're going to print a 6 mana fast speed Psychic Scream. And I was like, are you out of your goddamn mind?
Yeah, that's insane. Are there any games? I wonder if there's any card games with more than 10 mana. Or, well, now it's Runeterra with 13. But I wonder if there's any games that go outside of that 10 mana thing.
Force of Will did.
Oh, that's right. Force of Will did. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you were allowed to play anywhere between 10 and 20 lands. And because you got a land every turn, you know, the reason that people played 10 instead of 20 was because there were a lot of dual lands. So, like, in order to consistently hit your colors, you wanted to play 10 so that you could play 3 colors.
And obviously, when I say that, I don't mean Magic. Magic is kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
I mean any game that has, like, a cap mana amount.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wow. So, we see Stan take another quick 2-0 there. Wow. All right, that's it. Stan gonna make it to the finals for the winners bracket, which you will see in the day 2 footage, which will be coming up shortly after this video. So don't forget to subscribe, turn on that bell to get notified when that footage goes live. But as always, everybody stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you. Peace out.